Good evening, Coach McHugh. My name is Jack Underwood, and this is my presentation on the health benefits of drinking coffee. Coffee has been a staple in American culture since the early 1900s. From the canned coffee dominance of the 20th century to the fresh roasted whole bean coffee of the 21st century, coffee consumption has been on the rise. Coffee is the second most valuable commodity in the world, and it now seems to be a part of our generation's culture more than ever. More than 50% of Americans drink coffee, and that's according to an online study. Meeting in a coffee shop has become the norm to discuss various political or theological topics, or simply just to talk about daily life. Unfortunately, coffee has been given a bad rap and labeled as addictive because of the caffeine content in it, or given a bad rap because it's um, been called a diuretic. And while those may be true to an extent, this is certainly no reason to pass up a cup. So with coffee consumption on the rise, what are the health benefits of drinking coffee? And studies have shown that the benefits are numerous. Coffee is one of the most complex beverages. It has 700 to 850 substances that influence its flavor, in addition to the 2,000 some components that are non-flavor components. That's from a book all about coffee. Um, it is because of this complexity that scientists are starting to find many benefits in drinking coffee. These health benefits range from the simple to the more long-term complex diseases. Some simple benefits of drinking coffee are that it has a low calorie content. A mere 2 calories make up one single cup of black coffee, um, which, in my opinion, is the way that it should be drunk, black. But if you have to have or want to have cream and sugar in it, the calorie content will increase, which is just one more reason to drink it black. Another simple benefit of drinking coffee is that it's a great source of antioxidants. An article on eatingwell.com states some researchers speculate that the compounds might boost activation of nitric oxide, a substance that widens blood vessels, lowering blood pressure. Uh, a long-term benefit of drinking coffee is that it has the potential to protect against type 2 diabetes. A report online described in detail how the caffeine in coffee helps this. Caffeine exerts beneficial effects on glucose metabolism through increased uncoupling protein expressions and lipid oxidation. These further lead to decreased glucose storage capacity, which in turn reduces the extent of diabetes mellitus. Another potential long-term benefit of coffee consumption is that it may help hinder Parkinson's disease. According to various studies, higher coffee intake has shown a lower risk in developing Parkinson's disease. In addition to reducing the chance of getting Parkinson's disease, those who have Parkinson's disease, coffee consumption has shown to help in that Parkinson's disease, to lessen the effects of that. In addition to reducing the chances of developing type 2 diabetes and Parkinson's disease, coffee also lowers the chance of developing a liver disease. An online article states, one analysis of 9 studies found that every 2-cup increase in daily coffee intake was associated with a 43% lower risk of liver cancer. Possible explanation: caffeine and antioxidant chlorogenic and caffeic acids in coffee might prevent liver inflammation and inhibit cancer cells. Clearly, there are many reasons why to sip on your morning cup of coffee. The consequences that come from drinking coffee have pretty much been disproven. A report on National Public Radio described it this way. If you go back to the 1970s, people with a serious coffee habit often had an accompanying habit, smoking. And that's why early studies gave coffee a bad rap. Clearly, smoking was harmful, and it was hard for researchers to disentangle the two habits. One of the most common consequences of consuming coffee is that it dehydrates the body. National Public Radio, again, however, presented another report that a study was done where a group of people drank only coffee for a set amount of time. And then for that same equal amount of set time, they drank only water. So equal amounts of coffee, equal amounts of water. And what they found is that the hydration levels between the two groups of people from those sets of times, there was barely any change. So coffee is not is nearly as much of a dehydrant as we think it to be. Another common misconception surrounding coffee is its diuretic effect. The same National Public Radio report shows that avid coffee drinkers develop a tolerance to this effect in coffee. Of course, too much coffee has negative effects. Too much of a good thing can be bad. Consuming too much caffeine in general, not just in coffee, can increase anxiety levels, which is never a good thing. In today's society, the caffeine content of coffee barely holds a candle to energy drinks, however. I don't think it's necessarily contributing in that sense as much as it may have used to before other more caffeinated drinks appeared. In a biblical sense, obviously the Bible contains no passages concerning coffee consumption. The typical approach to a biblical perspective on coffee consumption would be that we are to treat our bodies well. In that sense, then consuming coffee would fall into that category, clearly because of the numerous health benefits that it has and the potential consequences not being nearly as severe as they used to be thought. I think a more accurate biblical perspective on coffee consumption would fall into our calling as Christians to sharpen one another. Proverbs 27:17 says, "Iron sharpens iron, and one man sharpens another." I've had many conversations in a coffee shop, enjoying a cup of coffee with a friend, where we have sharpened one another by means of conversation, just talking various theological ideas and a biblical basis for them, and our viewpoints, and just sharing life, details about marriage and good things and bad things, and just kind of being able to get everything out there and talk about it really helped push me to try harder, push me to help understand the Bible more. It sharpened me. So I think that the coffee was just a platform for those conversations to happen. Another biblical perspective, quite simply, is that we should do everything to the glory of God. So whether you eat or drink or whatever you do, do all to the glory of God. And that's 1 Corinthians 10:31. Debunking all of the overstated misconceptions of drinking coffee and understanding the benefits of drinking coffee will enable people not feel guilty about their desire for coffee. Obviously, this is not a drastic reality. I mean, in light of things, coffee kind of it doesn't fall high on the priority list, but let alone knowing the truth about coffee makes the whole experience more enjoyable. This also has implications in ministry. Personally, as I mentioned, I meet with a friend every now and then to talk about life and theology over a cup of coffee. I think that coffee can be a rallying point for relational ministry. A coffee shop can be a great place for either one-on-one or small group studies. Out of the many different coffee shops that I have been in personally, it is not uncommon for me to overhear a theological conversation, and I'm not exaggerating. I'll be standing, waiting to get my coffee or studying, and overhear, and not to eavesdrop or anything like that, but I overhear conversations pertaining to soteriology and the doctrine of salvation, and even just this person's going through a hard thing, and the other person is mentoring and giving biblical advice on how to overcome that difficulty. Granted, coffee shops, this isn't the only place where this kind of relational ministry can happen, but I think that the atmosphere is very welcoming to that. And all of that can happen while sipping a cup of coffee. And because of the benefits that drinking coffee has, you are free to enjoy that whole experience. Some possible next step in light of these findings are to obviously continue to enjoy your morning, afternoon, or evening cup of coffee. And if the caffeine content in the evening is too much, there's always decaf. Let this information continue to draw yourself and your friends to share real-life conversations, knowing that the coffee you are consuming is benefiting your health. Potential resource is a coffee website known as Sprudge.com. They post many articles just about the coffee world that a lot of coffee geeks like me find interesting. But in addition to that, they do post a lot of articles pertaining to the health benefits of coffee. And so I encourage you to check that out, if not to just further your knowledge of the coffee world, because surprisingly it's very expansive. Thank you. I hope you have a good evening.